Hello everyone, this is Anime Octopus. Welcome back to the channel. Today's topic is, what if Naruko was trained by Madara? Part 3. Before we dive in, a quick disclaimer. The content on this channel is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Let's not waste any more time. Part 3 starts now. Let's get into it. Are you absolutely sure you don't want another D-rank mission? Tsunade asked with a smile, amused by the dedication that Kakashi had instilled in his 3 students. The trio, clearly weary from another round of animal catching and potato farming, looked less than thrilled, but they hadn't uttered a single complaint. Kakashi offered his usual relaxed smile. I think I'll head home and catch up on some rest. Raising a child doesn't leave much time for naps, you know. Believe me, Kakashi, there just aren't enough hours in the day, Naruko added with a knowing grin, narrowly avoiding a playful flick from her teacher. Though Kakashi kept up his usual nonchalant demeanor, he wasn't oblivious to how restless Naruko and Sasuke were becoming. While D-rank missions helped build foundational skills and discipline, young shinobi often longed for more thrilling challenges. Sasuke, especially, seemed driven by a strong desire to grow stronger, something that didn't come from rounding up stray pets. Be polite, Naruko, Sakura scolded, protective as always when it came to defending their sensei. Did you know that Kakashi's hair used to be blonde? Naruko declared with full confidence, despite the obvious fabrication. What? Sakura asked, utterly confused. Even Tsunade couldn't help but chuckle at the absurd claim. Naruko nodded seriously. Oh, it's true. Repeated D-rank missions are said to cause hair discoloration, rapid aging, random mole appearances, and even major dental changes. Why do you think Kakashi-sensei wears a mask all the time? He's shy about his buck teeth and... Now even Sasuke raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the mystery of Kakashi's hidden face. Be careful, Sakura. If we keep up with D ranks forever, we might end up like... Well, you know who. No. Sakura yelped, realizing too late that she'd walked into Naruko's trap again. Just be quiet, Naruko. Kakashi stepped in before it escalated. Let's not forget, he said with a smirk, that a sensei always knows where their students live. Midnight surprise missions aren't off the table, and remember, teamwork means no one gets left behind. Naruko's eye twitched as her teammates turned their glares on her. Ahem, Tsunade cleared her throat. Team 7 turned their attention toward the amused Hokage. Return tomorrow morning for your next assignment. You're dismissed. Kakashi watched his students with quiet fondness. As a seasoned shinobi, he knew that eccentric behavior was tolerated in their line of work, as long as loyalty to the village remained unwavering. It was this awareness that he used to evaluate his most mysterious student, Uzumaki Naruko. Despite her playful antics, Naruko had consistently outperformed expectations. She used shadow clones with impressive ease and had unmatched energy and stamina. Her proficiency in hand-to-hand combat, especially for her age, was remarkable. Still, Kakashi sensed she was holding back. There was more to her, much more, and it was his job to ensure her growth benefited the village. If Naruko kept her talents hidden, she only limited her own opportunities. But it was her journey to choose. Kakashi could offer guidance, but she would have to walk through the door herself. For now, he kept a close eye on her progress. Her chakra reserves were vast, and while her abilities seemed self-taught, her technique suggested someone naturally gifted. It was possible she had learned by mimicking others in the village, an impressive feat, though also one that came with risks. Kakashi had observed Naruko for most of her life. He knew the upbeat, mischievous personality she displayed was only a part of her true self. He had seen moments of genuine emotion, of frustration and hurt. Whatever mask she wore, he could tell there was more beneath the surface. And as her teacher, he intended to help her find her path, one step at a time. In the meantime, Team 7 continued their drills. Kakashi insisted on ending each mission with teamwork exercises to prepare them for more advanced assignments. Sakura was progressing quickly, showing strong cooperation and warming up to Naruko. Naruko and Sasuke, however, remained independent spirits. They practiced teamwork more to appease Kakashi than from a shared desire to collaborate. Still, progress was being made, and the day they were ready for a C-rank mission was fast approaching. After wrapping up their daily D rank, Kakashi tucked his book away and looked over his students. They were tired but attentive. Well done today, Team 7, he praised. And now, as a reward. Lunch? Naruko asked eagerly. Nope. Kakashi replied cheerfully. Combat training. Sasuke's eyes lit up. Follow me, my adorable Jinan. Kakashi called. Let's give you a real challenge today. Sakura felt a wave of unease. The team followed him back to the same field used during their bell test. Along the way, they chatted quietly. Do you think we'll be sparring? Sakura asked with some concern. Most likely, Sasuke replied with casual indifference. Sakura, Kakashi said gently but firmly, you won't improve if you avoid challenges. The boys will go easy on you, but I expect your best effort. Alright, she nodded. And it's not just sparring, this is full combat training. Work together. Show me what you've learned. Dash. The match began, and Sakura winced as Sasuke was once again overpowered by Naruko. Though she wanted to cheer for him, fatigue from earlier drills kept her resting under a tree. Today, Kakashi had allowed the use of ninjutsu and genjutsu. Sasuke had been eager to show his skills, but Naruko's impressive close-range abilities made that difficult. Sasuke sprang to his feet, determined not to lose. He formed a series of hand signs, tiger seal last. Fire style, fireball jutsu. A large orb of flame surged forward, forcing Naruko to leap aside. Even as she moved, she launched 2 shuriken and quickly formed another set of signs. The 2 shuriken multiplied into 20, clashing mid-air and creating unpredictable paths. Sasuke's Sharingan followed the movement, helping him dodge. As Naruko prepared her next move, Sasuke launched his follow-up. Fire style, Phoenix Fire Jutsu. He released a cluster of 5 small fireballs. With shuriken thrown alongside them, the attack became chaotic and hard to evade. The only safe routes were upward or underground. Go, Sasuke-kun. Sakura cheered from the sidelines. Kakashi watched closely, prepared to intervene, until he sensed a surge of chakra from Naruko. Sakura, you might want to get behind a tree, he advised calmly. Naruko, now slightly annoyed at hiding her real power, decided to respond with something a little stronger. She formed a single bird seal. Wind style, great breakthrough. A powerful gust of wind exploded from her lungs, shattering the fireballs mid-air and sweeping across the field. The force flattened the grass and shook the trees, leaving Sasuke struggling to stay grounded. Even so, Naruko closed in and gently pressed a practice kunai to his neck. Victory goes to Naruko. Kakashi called out. Sakura sat in stunned silence as the match ended in an instant. Kakashi wasn't surprised. Wind release, remarkable chakra control, unmatched stamina, and top-tier taijutsu for her age. Definitely an unusual combination, Kakashi mused silently. That's enough for today, he declared, moving to check on Sasuke, who, despite being worn out, was not seriously injured. Nothing a good night's rest, and perhaps a visit to the clinic, wouldn't fix. I'm home. Sakura croaked out as she stepped inside. Her mother turned away from preparing dinner and gave her daughter a concerned look. Welcome back. Sakura? Mebuki paused, taking in the exhausted and bruised appearance of her child. Sakura sank into her usual seat at the dining table, her fatigue evident. Oh my goodness. What happened to you? Her mother dropped her utensils and rushed over to examine her. Training, Sakura replied, barely managing to keep her eyes open. Mebuki frowned deeply. You look like you went through a battle. Kakashi-sensei made a spar. He was testing if we're ready for a proper mission. By pushing you this hard? She exclaimed, clearly upset. Surprisingly, it was Sakura's father at the other end of the table who brought a bit of calm to the room. Let's not jump to conclusions, dear. Kakashi-sensei is careful. He wouldn't send Sakura or her teammates into anything beyond their ability. Kazashi glanced over his paper. He just wants to make sure they can handle themselves. I'd rather have them well prepared. Sakura was grateful when her mother gave only a huff in response. Not that I don't worry, Kazashi continued, setting his newspaper down. But Kakashi is a respected shinobi. He knows what he's doing. And besides. He grinned, and Sakura immediately sensed what was coming. My little girl, my precious Sakura, apple of my eye. He swooped in with a warm hug as Sakura gave a tired groan, too worn out to resist. Dad, she mumbled weakly. Mebuki joined in too, hugging them both with glistening eyes. Dash. Sasuke collapsed onto his bed, arms spread, eyes fixed on the ceiling. The week had been long, filled with quiet contemplation. Take a week off, Kakashi had said. Rest. Reflect on your training. We've got a real mission coming up. Use the time to be with those you care about. Say your goodbyes if you need to. So he did. He stopped by the small bakery he often visited and gave the couple his spare keys, as was customary when shinobi left the village for longer assignments. He liked them. They treated him kindly, without judgment or expectations. They didn't treat him like a legacy or a tool, just a person. He appreciated that. He had come to realize that those traits, kindness, distance from expectation, were shared by his newest rival, Uzumaki Naruko. Naruko was an enigma. Unlike others, she didn't criticize his goals or question them. She didn't try to compare. All she ever did was challenge him to be stronger. He had even considered asking her why, but she was always so elusive, either dodging the question or joking around. But deep down, Sasuke had started forming a theory. A bitter one. Naruko had no equal among their peers. Once, that position had belonged to Sasuke. He had been the benchmark. But now, Naruko was the one who surpassed others so naturally, and it was frustrating. He didn't feel himself improving when he sparred with her. She was simply too advanced. Kakashi, perceptive as ever, had addressed the concern directly. You've grown, Sasuke. I watched your spar with Naruko. Your planning, the way you combine techniques on the fly, those are signs of progress. You've adapted. You even sought out a clan technique and mastered it enough to use in battle. That's growth. But Naruko is just ahead. That's not your weakness, that's her strength. But still, Sasuke had doubts. How could he hope to reach his goals if he couldn't even defeat a teammate? He had voiced that once, and looking back, he regretted it. Itachi had advantages you didn't, Kakashi had said, his single eye locking onto Sasuke's. He was pushed hard from a young age. He had clan mentors, teachers for every technique, and endless pressure. I rejected his first application to Anbu myself because his health was suffering from the stress. His path was different, and not always better. Kakashi sighed, resting against a rail as they walked. He often chose this path when he wanted to talk more personally. I've lost things too, Kakashi said. I was raised in the shadow of a legend. Everyone wanted me to be Hitake Sakumo. But in the end, it was the friends and bonds I formed that helped me find my own strength, not his reputation. Sasuke listened quietly. You are Uchiha Sasuke. Not the next Itachi. Not a replacement. Yourself. And you have the ability to grow, not by copying someone else's path, but by walking your own. Kakashi walked him home after that. Sasuke said nothing, but he could feel the weight in his chest. Lying in bed, he stared at the ceiling. One hand came up to cover his eyes. I am Uchiha Sasuke, he whispered. Tears slipped silently from the corners of his eyes. I will forge my own way. It was a quiet, heartfelt vow. Meanwhile, Kakashi was smiling as he stepped into his home, hearing the familiar, energetic singing of his daughter. I'm home, he called out. His sandals and jacket came off, and he made his way to the kitchen, where Shizune was preparing dinner. Without a word, he hugged her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Back on missions already? She asked, leaning into him slightly. Yep. Everything's set. What about your replacement? Trained and ready. Tsunade-sama officially hands things over tomorrow. Kakashi hummed, glad for her return to home life, even if it meant fewer moments when Naruko could babysit. Papa's back. A joyful voice called from across the house. Shizune smiled. She's been waiting all day to tell you something. Kakashi bent down to scoop up his daughter, Minako, who threw her arms around him with enthusiasm. I have something very important to say, she declared with dramatic flair. Oh? Let's hear it then, Kakashi said, grinning. Minako leaned closer. I've made my decision, Papa. I'm going to marry Narune. There was a pause. A long one. Oh dear. Shizune burst into laughter behind him. Ichiraku ramen glowed softly in the evening light, its warmth inviting and familiar. Naruko was sitting at the counter, enthusiastically sharing a story with Ayame, her favorite ramen server. So there I was, she began, surrounded by 5 of the toughest shinobi you've ever seen. Giant swords, growling voices, and me? Calm as ever. I channel my shinobi focus, spring into action, and bam! They didn't know what hit them. She threw in exaggerated moves to demonstrate. Ayame giggled, clearly amused. You're amazing, Naruko. Naruko tapped her cheek. Of course. Right here. Ayame leaned over the counter and gave her a playful peck on the cheek. Sounds like a dramatic D rank, Tucci said as he set down a steaming bowl. Only the best for the best Jinan, Naruko replied with a cheeky grin. Just as she broke her chopsticks, noise began rising from down the street. Ayame leaned closer. Ignore them. Newly promoted Chonin. Celebrating. Loudly. Naruko's eyes didn't leave her bowl. They're not actually celebrating. Their movements are too controlled. No signs of actual drinking. They're just making noise to get attention. Ayame blinked. You can tell that? Naruko shrugged. It's a shinobi thing. She finished the last of her broth. Thanks, Ayame. I might not see you for a few weeks, we've got a real mission coming up. Just then, the group of Chonin returned, lingering by the stand. One of them overheard Naruko. Hey, you hear that? Little Jinan-chan's going on her first big mission. He laughed loudly, and the others followed, crowding near. Tucci's voice was firm. Move along, boys. Don't bother my customers. Relax, old man. We're just chatting with the rookie. Ayame looked nervous, inching behind the counter. Naruko set her bowl down quietly. You should go. Or what? One Chonin reached for her shoulder. Naruko didn't flinch. Or you'll regret not listening. There was a sudden change in atmosphere. The group fell silent, watching the calm but unwavering look in Naruko's eyes. Tucci noticed the tension in her posture and the steady grip of her hand. You're going to wish the Jounin were here, Naruko said softly. The group hesitated. Tucci stepped forward. Gentlemen, I recommend you take your business elsewhere. One final look at Naruko's composed expression was enough. The Chonin quietly left. Ayame exhaled slowly. Naruko. Thank you. Naruko gave a casual smile. No problem. See you around. And with that, she vanished into the night. One of the Chonin grabbed Naruko's shoulder with a firm grip, clearly not expecting any resistance. But Naruko calmly turned and redirected the force, maneuvering his arm out of alignment with surprising precision. In one fluid motion, she sent him tumbling gently into a nearby wooden fence, where he landed with a surprised grunt. Another Chonin, clearly startled, raised his fist in frustration. What in the world? He shouted, swinging at Naruko. But his movement was sluggish, and Naruko, composed and focused, didn't even need to move aside. Her counterstrike came swiftly. She delivered a clean and controlled push that sent him off balance, resulting in him sitting on the ground, nose bruised but intact. The other four Chonin chose to attack instead of retreating. Naruko leapt forward with the agility of a seasoned ninja. Using one as a pivot point, she landed carefully on the shoulder of another, tapping it hard enough to bring him down. She maintained her stance, gently redirecting incoming strikes, parrying three opponents at once without breaking a sweat. With a smooth sweep of her leg, she caused one to trip and land softly on the ground. Before the one behind her could react, she slid to the side and nudged his leg out from under him, causing him to lose balance harmlessly. The light tap she added to his shoulder caused him to stumble and sit down in a daze. Her speed and clarity in motion made it apparent why she was no ordinary Jinan. Still, the group refused to give up, which was commendable in its own right. Naruko noticed their tenacity and responded with grace rather than aggression. With quick footwork, she moved behind one of them and lifted him slightly off the ground before setting him back down gently, causing him to catch his breath. A simple palm to the midsection was all it took to guide him down to a resting state. With two opponents remaining, Naruko leapt into the air. With carefully measured force, she pushed away their clumsy strikes and lightly tapped each of them on the side of the head, encouraging them to sit down and rethink their approach. They stumbled slightly before regaining their posture, clearly understanding the message. The Chonin with the sore shoulder struggled to stand and sent out a few light kicks in protest, but Naruko stepped forward and helped guide him back to the ground. A soft tap to his ribs was enough to convince him to stay seated. Only the one named Junoiki was still in fighting condition. Gasps echoed through the crowd when he reached into his holster and drew a kunai. All right, you little troublemaker. He grumbled, struggling to speak clearly. Naruko's voice was calm but firm, her tone one of unshakable confidence. The smartest decision you could make right now, she said softly, is to walk away. She didn't take a fighting stance, her relaxed posture spoke volumes. It was the stance of someone who no longer needed to prove herself. Junoiki lunged forward, letting out a determined cry. But before he could get close, Naruko had already taken hold of his wrist and gently disarmed him. The kunai fell harmlessly to the ground, and Junoiki dropped to one knee from the surprise of it all. Naruko placed her hand just under his chin, carefully stopping him from speaking further. "Here's what's going to happen," she said with quiet strength. "You and your team are going to respect the people here. That means no more threats, no more intimidation, and no more pushing others around." "Not happening," he managed to blurt out defiantly. Naruko's expression remained serene as she subtly tightened her grip, enough to get the point across, without causing harm. Junoiki winced and looked away. The crowd, though silent, looked on with admiration and relief. Parents shielded the eyes of their children, but kept watching in respectful awe. Junoiki's trembling gaze met Naruko's determined one. She didn't need to say anything else. Her intention was crystal clear. "Understand?" she asked gently. The Chonin gave a small, cautious nod. Naruko let him go and he quietly sank to the ground, the lesson clearly received. "Excellent," she said with a soft smile. "Nice work, kid," someone murmured from the watching crowd. Others nodded in agreement, still taken aback by her precision and self-control. Soon after, a Jounin arrived, summoned by one of the observers. He gathered reports from the nearby witnesses. Tucci and Ayame provided a clear and honest account. Not long after, 2 medics showed up to attend to the startled Chonin. Naruko tried to quietly exit the scene, but a glasses-wearing Jounin named Aoba gently stopped her. "Sorry, Naruko," he said with a tired smile. "Need your version too. You're not in any trouble, don't worry. As Tsunade-sama would say, some lessons need to be learned the hard way." Aftermath and realizations. The investigating Jounin ultimately cleared Naruko of any wrongdoing. Though her actions were noted as assertive, the village deemed them justified considering the situation and her clear restraint. Naruko reflected later on how her strength had prevented a more serious incident. Tucci had tried to reason with the group, but sometimes, words weren't enough. She realized that responsibility came hand in hand with ability, and that sometimes, shinobi were entrusted to step in where others couldn't. Konoha's system allowed for flexibility and judgment, as long as the shinobi showed integrity and acted in the interest of peace and order. Rank mattered, but character mattered more. Team 7's new mission. 1 week later, Team 7 assembled early in the morning. As Tsunade began reading D-rank assignments, Kakashi politely interjected. "With all due respect, Tsunade-sama, I believe Team 7 is ready for a C rank." Naruko and Sasuke stood confidently, while Sakura looked slightly anxious. Tsunade raised an eyebrow, then smiled. "You're the first new team to request one. Most C ranks were claimed earlier, but I think I have one left." She pressed her intercom. "Are the new mission scrolls ready?" "Yes, Hokage-sama. Shall I bring them in?" came a young man's professional voice. "Please do." A young man with silver hair, Kabuto, entered with a stack of scrolls and restocked the shelves. "Thank you, Kabuto," Tsunade said. He bowed and left without further comment. "Shizune's replacement?" Kakashi asked quietly. "Yep," Tsunade confirmed. "Excellent medic. Could probably give Shizune a challenge." She picked up a scroll. "Here's your mission. A bridge builder from the Land of Waves has requested skilled escorts. He's been harassed by local troublemakers and wants protection for his workers and project." She pressed the intercom again. "Send in Tazuna." An older man entered, looking disheveled and unimpressed. "This is the team?" he grumbled. 3 kids and 1 teacher? "You're welcome to request a refund," Tsunade replied politely. "Though I imagine a 3-week delay for a new team might not help your schedule." Tazuna quickly changed his tone. "Let's get started then," Kakashi said, bowing slightly. "Thank you, Tsunade-sama." The journey begins. As they walked, limited by the pace of their civilian client, Team 7 adjusted to the calm of an escort mission. No sprinting through trees, just steady walking and staying alert. That evening, they set up camp and took shifts to ensure rest and safety. The next morning, as they resumed their journey, Sakura posed a question. "Tazuna-san, why is the bridge so important? I thought your country used ships?" Tazuna took a careful sip from a flask and sighed. "Well, shipping has become unreliable due to pirate activity. With no land connection, trade's almost impossible. Families are struggling. The bridge is our hope." Naruko listened quietly, her instincts noting that the story didn't feel complete. Something was being left out, but she kept her thoughts to herself for now. Sakura continued, "What do you normally trade?" "Mostly fish, We've got great fisheries, but we import building supplies we can't source ourselves. Once the bridge is done, we can start building our future again. Naruko nodded, her eyes scanning the trees. They passed through a stretch of forest when something stood out to her, 2 puddles, unusually placed in the dry path. She focused. 2 chakra signatures. They weren't moving. Waiting. She didn't react outwardly, but her mind was sharp. Her suspicions were confirmed when the group stepped past, and 2 hidden figures leapt into action. Knew it, Naruko thought, stepping forward to intercept. The 2 hidden shinobi are revealed to be from Kirigakure and make the poor decision to attack Kakashi first. However, the Kakashi they attack is quickly unraveled as a cleverly disguised substitution, a trick both Naruko and Sasuke are now well aware of. Sakura, startled by the ambush, momentarily freezes in place. Sasuke and Naruko spring into action. Sasuke skillfully uses kunai to sever the bladed chain linking the attackers, forcing them to detach it from their gauntlets. Despite their toxic claws, the enemies are swiftly overpowered. Well, that was an interesting start, Kakashi says, emerging calmly from the treetops. And they're still in one piece. Nicely handled, both of you. Stay here with Tazuna for now, I'd like to have a word with our guests. Sasuke holds one of the subdued attackers in a firm arm lock. You're a different kind of slow, he mutters calmly. The shinobi growls through his rebreather, clearly displeased. Kakashi secures the 2 Kiri-nin and leads them into the forest, away from the team's view. What's he going to do? Tazuna asks nervously, though his panic is beginning to ease. Just ask a few questions, Naruko replies, composed. A short while later, Kakashi returns, having gathered the information he needed. Tazuna's heartfelt explanation of his country's struggles moves Sakura deeply. Naruko and Sasuke, however, are already determined to stay on and finish the mission. This is already feeling exhausting, Kakashi reflects silently, though he shows none of it on his face. Elsewhere, a graceful figure reports to a large, intimidating man. The mist shinobi failed, Zabuza-sama. The escort group is led by Hatake Kakashi. Did they see you? No. The towering man stands and effortlessly lifts an enormous sword onto his back. Then I'll go see just how skilled this Kakashi really is. This is where I leave you, says the boat captain who ferried the group across the sea. Thank you, you've been a big help, Kakashi responds. The group arrives in the land of waves and takes in the impressive progress of the bridge construction. Tazuna shares more insight about the troubling events in his country, and Team 7 continues deeper into the island chain. After the earlier ambush, they remain on high alert. But peace doesn't last long. Naruko sharpens her senses and begins to detect multiple chakra signatures nearby. Most are harmless animals like rabbits and foxes. However, 2 more appear at the very edge of her sensing range. Assuming they're more wildlife, she relaxes slightly, until Kakashi notices something off. The snow rabbit. It's not natural. Get down. Kakashi orders. Everyone drops low as a massive object whistles through the air and strikes a tree. A new figure appears, standing atop a massive sword embedded in the bark. He threw that from beyond my sensory range. Who is this guy? Naruko wonders, impressed by the sheer strength it must have taken. Sharingan no Kakashi. No wonder the mist shinobi didn't return. Kakashi lifts his forehead protector, revealing his Sharingan. Momochi Zabuza. A missing shinobi of the mist, and one of the 7 ninja swordsmen. I see you've heard of me, Zabuza replies, a glint of anticipation in his voice. But I have someone I need to meet, Tazuna. Team 7 immediately forms a protective stance around their client. You'll have to get through us first, Kakashi replies. Zabuza suddenly appears on the surface of a nearby lake, calmly forming a hand seal. He's standing on the water? Sakura gasps, eyes wide. Mist begins to fill the area thickly. Ninjutsu, hidden mist technique. The visibility vanishes entirely. Naruko focuses her chakra, honing in on the unfamiliar signature. Zabuza's chakra seems to split. Naruko quickly deduces that he's using clones and prepares to clear the mist. Wind release, passing typhoon. A gust bursts from Naruko's mouth, scattering enough of the mist to regain some visibility. Kakashi follows with a similar technique to reveal more of the field. Despite this, Zabuza's presence emits a pressure so intense it feels like the air itself is thick with menace. Naruko, trained in mental fortitude, remains calm. Sasuke and Sakura, however, struggle to stay composed. Don't worry. I'll keep you all safe. Kakashi's reassuring voice cuts through the tension, giving them the strength to refocus. Zabuza's voice echoes, we'll see about that. He suddenly appears beside them, only for Naruko to launch a burst of wind that disperses the image, just another water clone. Another clone attacks from behind, but Kakashi intercepts and dispels it with a kunai. Then, the real Zabuza appears and slashes Kakashi across the waist. Sensei! Sakura cries, terrified. Kakashi dissolves into water, another substitution. The real Kakashi holds his kunai at Zabuza's neck. You copied my technique. And hid yourself using my own mist? Zabuza says. I wouldn't move if I were you, Kakashi warns coolly. Zabuza responds with confidence before he too disperses into water. Suddenly, Zabuza reappears and lands a powerful kick that sends Kakashi flying into the lake. Water style, water prison technique. Before anyone can react, Kakashi is trapped inside a sphere of water, unable to move. Take the client and go. He calls. Naruko knows that won't be possible without abandoning Tazuna, and that's not an option. A water clone forms and lunges at them. It knocks Sasuke back before Naruko retaliates. Fire style, fireball jutsu. She releases a stream of flame, evaporating the clone instantly. Another clone advances on Sasuke, but this one moves slower. Sasuke seizes the moment and counters with fire style, Phoenix Fire Jutsu, destroying the clone. Looks like I've figured you out, Zabuza taunts as yet another clone steps forward. Naruko is already analyzing the situation. Each clone is slower, less coordinated. He's spreading himself too thin, Naruko says to Sasuke. If we can disrupt his focus, Kakashi-sensei might break free. Nice try, but you're out of moves, Zabuza sneers. He thinks we're out of ideas. Time to prove otherwise, Naruko thinks. Sasuke, get ready. When I strike, follow up and aim for his hand. Sasuke nods subtly. Fire style, Dragon Flame Jutsu. A roaring blaze in the shape of a dragon bursts from Naruko's mouth, blasting straight through the clone and heading toward the real Zabuza. Startled, Zabuza shields himself behind the water prison. The attack forces the orb to shift, giving Kakashi just enough space to take a breath. The intense steam and chakra clash don't go unnoticed. She's incredible, Kakashi thinks, regaining clarity. From his position, Kakashi notices Sasuke's well-aimed shuriken, one shadowing another. The second one scrapes Zabuza's arm. Og! Zabuza flinches, breaking his hold. Kakashi drops into the water, free at last. Zabuza, seeing his advantage gone, prepares for one final charge toward Tazuna. Stand firm. Naruko orders. Just as Zabuza closes in, Kakashi bursts from underground and strikes with two powerful kicks, sending Zabuza tumbling back onto the water. Kakashi mirrors Zabuza's hand signs, then abruptly changes course. Water style, great waterfall technique. A massive wave erupts from the lake, sweeping Zabuza off his feet and launching him against the trees. Water crashes through the clearing, leaving everyone in awe of the sheer power behind the technique. Zabuza is down, coughing, trying to stand, until two small projectiles strike his neck. What? A hunter nin. Kakashi exclaims, recognizing the figure. Thank you for your support, Kakashi-san, the masked figure says politely. I'll be taking Zabuza-san with me now. Kakashi checks for a pulse, then nods. He's unconscious. You're free to proceed. With a flicker, the hunter nin disappears with Zabuza. Kakashi sighs deeply, clearly drained. All right team, let's find shelter and, he collapses mid-sentence. Naruko rushes to his side and helps him onto the shore. We're close. Tazuna exclaims. There's a place where he can recover. As they move to safety, Tazuna glances back at the young shinobi who just saved his life. I've never seen anything like this. These kids are real heroes. They made it to Tazuna's home as quickly as possible. Naruko, now tall enough, helps support the weary Kakashi by gently placing the Jounin's arm over her shoulders. Kakashi could only manage small, slow steps due to exhaustion, and likely wouldn't have been able to walk at all without Naruko's help. It seems the Sharingan places a serious strain on the body, Naruko thought. As the group passed a number of worn-down buildings on their way, they noticed tired and cautious glances from the locals. Just as Tazuna had mentioned, the community appeared to be struggling. The state of their clothing and the shuttered shops told a story of hardship. Naruko tried to remain focused on the surroundings in case of an ambush but couldn't help letting her thoughts wander back to the earlier confrontation. She was impressed by Zabuza's mastery of fighting techniques involving water. It was a skill she could certainly learn from and apply in the future. Still, frustration simmered beneath the surface. She had wanted to help more, but doing so would have revealed her Sharingan, something she was reserving for a critical moment. Showing it to her team could be useful, but secrecy was essential. Too many eyes in Konoha's leadership would notice such a revelation. If they discovered her true power, it could lead to her being placed under heavy scrutiny. Worse, there were powerful individuals who might seek to exploit that information. Revealing her Sharingan might protect her in the public eye, but the risk still outweighed the benefits. This mission simply wasn't worth the exposure. While she pondered this, they arrived at Tazana's riverside home. It was simple but welcoming, and it was clear Tazana cared for his family. "Tsunami. I'm home," Tazana called cheerfully as they neared the door. Moments later, quick footsteps echoed on the wooden floor, and the door swung open. "To-san," Tsunami cried as she embraced him tightly. "It's good to see you," he replied warmly. "Where's my grandson?" "Out on the pier, like usual," Tsunami answered, her smile dimming slightly. Tazana sighed but stepped aside, allowing the shinobi to enter. "Follow me. There's a spare room in the back where your sensei can rest." "Oh my." Tsunami's voice was filled with concern as she looked over the young ninja, particularly noting Naruko carrying the team's adult leader. Naruko gently laid Kakashi down on the makeshift bed Tsunami had prepared. She sat beside him as he slipped into unconsciousness once again. "That was rough," Naruko muttered. "What do we do now?" Sakura asked nervously, wringing her hands as she sat down. "We focus on Kakashi's recovery," Sasuke said seriously. "This mission becomes a lot more difficult without him. Honestly, I thought he would have passed out long before we made it back." Naruko nodded. "We still have some time. Zabuza's replacement won't appear immediately, so we should be able to move freely in Nami for now. Sakura, check Kakashi's pouch for soldier pills. They were likely prepared by his wife, she's a skilled medical kunoichi." "I'm going to set up traps around the house," Sasuke volunteered, heading out swiftly. "Don't go anywhere alone, Tazana," Naruko instructed the bridge builder firmly. "I understand that you want to rest and check on your workers, but things are different now." "All right. Understood," Tazana replied, taken aback by her serious tone. Kakashi drifted in and out of sleep. Sakura, watching Naruko speak with Tazana, didn't notice when Kakashi subtly lowered his mask and flicked the pills from her fingers. "Huh?" Sakura blinked, having completely missed the movement. "Thank you, Sakura," Kakashi murmured before falling asleep again. "You're not making this any easier, Kakashi," Naruko said with a sigh. It took Sasuke about an hour to place traps around the property, on the roof, in the water, and near the wooden dock. He made sure there was just enough space for civilians to come and go safely, but anyone sneaking around would have quite the surprise waiting. He was drenched when he returned, and Tsunami quickly offered him towels with a kind smile. As she helped him dry off, Sasuke paused, his expression thoughtful and almost surprised. "Remind you of someone?" Naruko asked quietly so only he could hear. "She looks like my mother," Sasuke admitted in a soft voice. Though he appeared stoic, his tone held a trace of wistfulness. After a few moments, the emotion faded, replaced by quiet contemplation. Kakashi stirred again, this time looking far more aware than before. "You're awake," Sakura exclaimed, her eyes shimmering with relief. Kakashi gave a tired smile and winced as he sat up. "How long was I out?" "Just a few hours," Naruko answered calmly. "Those soldier pills really work wonders." That's Shizune for you," Kakashi said as he leaned against the wall. "I hate to say it, but I may have some troubling news." The young ninja tensed. "I think Zabuza may still be alive." At that moment, Tazana and Tsunami entered the room. "But that masked kid, didn't they defeat him?" Tazana asked in disbelief. "They used senbone needles," Kakashi explained. "Those aren't typically meant to be used to finish someone, especially not in that way." He then explained his theory: the masked individual was likely an ally of Zabuza, not an actual agent of Kirigakure. "This just keeps getting more complicated," Tazana murmured. "I understand your concern, Tazana-san," Naruko said respectfully. "But that fight revealed a lot. I got a good sense of Zabuza's fighting style. The bigger issue is the one who came to his aid. I think the masked person has a unique bloodline ability," Naruko continued. Their chakra felt unfamiliar but had distinct water and wind traits. My guess is that it's the Hyoton style. Care to elaborate? Kakashi prompted. I've been working on refining my chakra sensing skills. The masked person's chakra is highly refined and combines elemental natures. While I can't say for certain, I believe it's a special ability inherited through blood. Well done, Naruko. That's valuable information, Kakashi praised. You'll all need to prepare, though. Training starts tomorrow. In the middle of a mission? Sasuke asked, raising an eyebrow. There's no alternative, Kakashi said plainly. If you want to face what's coming, you need to be ready. And I have the perfect chakra control training for you. Kakashi, Naruko interrupted before Sakura could ask what kind of training. How did Zabuza manage to overwhelm you like that? I thought your skills were unmatched. His reputation is just as serious as mine, Kakashi explained. He's extremely capable and has strong chakra, especially when using water-style techniques. Normally, the Sharingan can see through basic clones, but his were so refined that even I had trouble telling the difference. That takes serious chakra density and control. Is he stronger than you? Sakura asked hesitantly. I'm not sure, Kakashi replied honestly. But next time, we'll have an advantage, no nearby water sources. That will limit his technique. Still, it's the masked one we need to watch most closely. Zabuza will probably come after me, so that leaves the rest of you to handle the hunter. That's why the training is vital. The air grew serious. But, Kakashi said with a tired smile, we'll start tomorrow. I need to rest a bit more. Kazuna and Tsunami looked overwhelmed. These were young ninja, barely more than children, and they were discussing advanced strategies and dangerous foes with calm determination. Sasuke remained thoughtful. After a moment, he turned to Naruko. Naruko, he said. She met his gaze, a bit curious. Why are you so strong? Naruko was silent for a moment, considering the question. It wasn't easy to find the right words, but she managed to piece together something close to the truth. She started to share her story, not to gain sympathy, but to express the purpose behind her strength. I began learning how to defend myself when I was 9, Naruko began calmly. Sakura's eyes widened, and Kakashi listened intently. At the orphanage, it was made clear that the path ahead for kids like me was to become shinobi. I trained like everyone else, but I didn't have the same advantages. I had to support myself, put food on the table, cover the basics. There were limitations that kept people like me from progressing quickly through the academy, so I had to find another way. Kakashi connected the dots silently, realizing the system had its flaws. I studied the bingo book, looking for missions I could take on, ones within my capability. I sought out minor threats, runaway genin or petty criminals who posed minimal risk, to sharpen my skills and earn enough to survive and grow. These experiences took me all across the land of fire. Some battles weren't easy, but they taught me valuable lessons. I realized early on that in order to become stronger, I needed resources, training scrolls, tools, and those didn't come free. I had to make tough choices, but I grew stronger because of them. Kids like me didn't get many options. Sakura swallowed, her voice shaking. But didn't anyone try to help? Adopt you? Give you a job? Naruko smiled faintly. That wasn't in the cards. After the Nine Tails attack 12 years ago, the village had more orphans than it could support. Most families were already doing their best just to care for their own. I wasn't anyone's priority. I slipped through the cracks and learned to stand on my own. I grew up with other kids in the same situation, learning to survive the shinobi path. And I chose to keep moving forward. She added with a softer tone, it wasn't all bad. I always had a place to sleep and somewhere to return to. That's more than what some people in this country have right now. Silence fell for a moment before Naruko turned to Kakashi with a smirk. I expected a little more agility from you, Kakashi. Oh, my adorable genin, Kakashi replied with a theatrical sigh. What have I done now? Shizune's been indulging you too much. You're getting a bit out of shape, she teased. Tsunami looked surprised at the casual way Naruko addressed her mentor. I'll be sure to pass along your concerns, Kakashi said with a smile in his voice, knowing full well Shizune would have something to say about that comment. Naruko waved it off. No need. Just make sure you're not holding back the team. Kakashi chuckled, appreciating the banter that helped ease the tension in the room. The next day, Kakashi began training Sasuke and Sakura on the tree climbing exercise. Naruko demonstrated that she had already mastered the technique and was assigned to guard Tazuna full time. Sasuke struggled at first but eventually succeeded by evening. Sakura found the challenge easy and was instead taught a genjutsu technique, along with some basic physical defense tactics to refine her skills. Kazuna's grandson, Inari, stayed out of sight for most of their stay. Kazuna explained it was due to his emotional state. Still, Naruko discreetly confirmed the boy's safety and ensured the person at the house was truly him. She observed that while Kazuna had a brave spirit, he was deeply influenced by his family. She proposed a clever strategy, having Tsunami and Inari safely hidden while a transformed clone took their place, just in case Gato's men targeted them. Naruko's unique ability to use both the shadow clone and transformation techniques made her the best fit for the job. Their plan was carried out in secret to maintain Kazuna's genuine reactions in case of an ambush. The real Naruko stayed hidden at Kazuna's house, using a clone to accompany the others. A few days passed quietly. Then, the mist returned to the bridge. Team 7, minus Naruko, had departed early with Kazuna. As the mist crept in, the construction workers retreated by boat. Realizing it would be unsafe for Kazuna to travel with them, he and the remaining team members stayed on the bridge. "Well now, looks like you're missing a team member, Kakashi," Zabuza's voice echoed through the mist. "I wouldn't worry about her if I were you. You've got your own problems to deal with," Kakashi replied, calm and confident. Zabuza let out a laugh. "Haku's not just any Genin. He might be stronger than I am." "Then I'll make sure this fight is swift," Kakashi replied. "Haku, go," Zabuza ordered. "Hi, Zabuza-sama," Haku responded politely. Sasuke found himself in a difficult battle. Haku revealed an advanced technique, mirrors of ice that surrounded Sasuke completely. While Sasuke's Sharingan helped him dodge attacks at the last second, he couldn't land a hit, and his energy began to fade. Then, a familiar voice called out. "Not Naruko." A shadow clone, the clone whispered to Sakura, who had recognized her teammate. "Is my family safe?" Kazuna asked anxiously. "I'll disappear if anything serious happens to the real me," the clone explained calmly. "Since I'm still here, your family's fine. Sakura, tell me everything." Sakura quickly described the situation and how Sasuke's fire technique had little effect. "The fire barely melted the ice, and it just reformed," she exclaimed. Naruko nodded. "Stay here and keep Kazuna safe." The clone launched herself into the air, trying to locate Sasuke within the dome. However, Haku's chakra signature seemed to be present in every mirror. Naruko had no choice but to dive in herself. Wind release, vacuum dive. Using a burst of wind chakra, she descended into the center of the dome, landing beside Sasuke. A dome of spinning air deflected the incoming needles. "You should have stayed out," Sasuke muttered, still breathing heavily. "I didn't really have that option," Naruko replied with a grin. "After this, you can thank me with a snack." Despite the tension, Sasuke allowed himself a brief smile. Haku narrowed his eyes. "More shinobi won't change the outcome. I must succeed." Naruko quickly analyzed the situation and launched a powerful fire release technique. Multiple blazing dragons burst forward, smashing into the ice with tremendous force. The top half of the dome cracked, only for Haku to reform it instantly. Sasuke suddenly realized what Naruko was doing, forcing Haku to use large amounts of chakra to maintain the mirrors. And Naruko had chakra reserves greater than most Jonin. Haku, recognizing the tactic, became visibly anxious. A distant sound of lightning drew his attention. Kakashi had begun his signature technique. "I'm sorry, but I must end this now," Haku said. The mirrors shattered. As he tried to flee, Naruko's clone managed to grab his leg. With a last burst of chakra, Haku encased the clone in solid ice and dashed forward, determined to protect his ally. But it was too late. As Haku reached the end of the bridge, he halted. Zabuza was immobilized, surrounded by summon hounds, and Kakashi's lightning technique had brought the battle to a close. Haku stood motionless, eyes wide. His expression shifted into one of overwhelming despair. "No," he whispered, the heartbreak evident in his voice. Suddenly, the clone that had been frozen erupted in a burst of harmless energy. Haku was pushed back, landing far from the confrontation. The battle was over. Kakashi called the team together, his voice low. "Let's move. We have a lot to talk about." Dear YouTube family. That's all for now. If you enjoyed the content, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your continued support. Regards. Anime Octopus.